everyone, welcome back to Our Japan. This is Roza Akino
and Kiyoshi. So today's topic, I think we should talk about dating and relationships, romantic relationships in Japan. So there tends to be not enough information, at least I think, in terms of dating Japanese men. If you look for it, there's going to be a ton of stuff about dating Japanese women. You can find a lot of stuff on YouTube. You probably find a lot of podcasts about it. So I just wanted to add what we can to the overall wealth of knowledge online. For somebody who would date whatever you may be, dating Japanese males, I don't find a lot of that type of information anywhere. But there's loads on dating Japanese women from whoever who would date a Japanese woman.
That is.
If you look, I think you can find more of that than you can about dating Japanese men.
Yeah, definitely, I would agree. But the thing with me is, I actually didn't really date much before coming to Japan. So
yeah,
I don't really know what's interesting information to, you know what I mean, to pick out about.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah,
but we'll see where it goes.
We'll see. Well, okay. I'll ask you some stuff, and if anything comes to mind, you can just tell me.
Sounds good. But yeah, so today's topic, romance and relationships in Japan.
Romance and relationships in Japan is a very, very good, apt title.
So
So
what's the word? What's the phrase that you use during I know there's a phrase that would be perfect.
Phrase?
Yeah, that would be good for this particular moment where I'm it's not take the mic. It's you know what I'm saying?
Are you talking about in English?
In English, yeah, because I have
take the reins. Take the.
I'll hand the reins to you, Kiyoshi. I think that's what I wanted to say.
Oh, because you think I have out of the two of us, I have the most experience dating a Japanese person?
Yeah. You're a player.
I guess so. I guess I would.
You're not a player.
I'm not a player.
But
Come
you
on.
have.
Am I a
yes,
player?
You are.
I don't know. It depends on what the definition of a player is.
You are mote.
I don't think I am not mote. No. That is. I have a whole YouTube series of videos, 3 videos, at least 2 videos about talking with my friend about how when I would go to Japan, a lot of my friends would say, "Oh man, you're gonna clean up. You're gonna be so popular with all the girls there, whatever." And then I went to Japan, and that was not the case.
Really?
The opposite case. Yeah, it's very hard. I think it depends on who you are.
Okay.
You can have success in Japan. I think if you try hard, or some people would say that you don't have to try at all, but I don't think that's the case. At least not anymore.
So, I mean, did you, in that case, did you notice a difference in how you were with women in Japan versus in the States? Or
I think like you, I don't have a lot of experience dating non-Japanese women. I do. I have in the United States. I do have some, obviously, but not enough to compare. I don't think it's that huge, not big of a difference actually. It's just about what how your personality matches with somebody else, rather than, because I didn't really have. Now I don't have a problem with there's no cultural differences between. There's more of a cultural difference when I date an American woman than when I date a Japanese woman now. Whereas before, I think when I started dating Japanese women, which was over 20 years ago, there was a little adjustment period, but I got over that pretty.
Over 20 years ago?
I had my first Japanese girlfriend when I was 19. So that's 23 years ago.
Wait, so you're 39?
I'm 42.
Wait, I can't. Okay. I
think your math.
But you said
one of our maths.
No.
One of our math is
you
off.
weren't specific. You said over 20, so you didn't say
over 20 years ago.
23.
I was 19 when I had my first Japanese girlfriend, and I'm 42 now. So that would it's 23 years, right? Yeah.
I can't believe you're... Wow. Well,
so
age is just a number anyway.
It's just a number. Time is a illusion. We made it up. But yeah. So there was a small window of adjustment, but after that, I soon became acclimated to a Japanese personality. So then I started becoming more Japanesey, and then so I was able to sort of match easily with a Japanese personality pretty early on. So now I feel it's kind of weird when I go out with an American girl. It's kind of the opposite. Like, what do I talk about? I remember when I came back from Japan, I had 2 dates like back to back with American women, and it was really awkward. It's very strange. I had no idea what to talk about. Yeah, I had to.
Okay, so what did you talk about?
I had a date with an Asian American woman. That was really weird because I tried to like bond with her over our Asian Americanness, and then she didn't really realize that I was half Asian. Like I don't think she knew my name and everything, but I don't think it didn't register in her mind that I was half Asian. So then I think she thought I was like, because I was trying to think of, my English was not great. I was trying to get used to speaking to another American person. So my English was off. So I couldn't think of the word for nationality. So, and she was like Korean American, but born somewhere else. Or like she was born in Vietnam or something like that. And I was like, so are you Vietnamese? And then she thought I was asking if like, because she was born in Vietnam, that her race changed to Vietnamese. And I was like, no, of course I don't. I know that that's not the case. But in her mind, she thought I was some ignorant American guy, or just an ignorant non-Asian dude. And then through the course of the date and the conversation, she started to realize that, oh, this guy's half Asian. But
so she probably took it as like,
he's a fucking idiot. He's a dumb, stupid. Yeah,
and you're trying to otherize her when you're just like, I want to bond on our Asian,
our Asianness,
overlap, like commonality here.
Exactly, and it didn't help that she was like, later on she told me that she usually dates white guys, and that was like her first venture outside of white guys for like a very long time. So I had a very bad impression on her. That was very awkward, very weird. So I don't have that experience with Japanese women. It's easier for me to, I don't know, be charming to them than it is to American women. So
what was the other? You said you had 2 back-to-back dates.
That's right. And that one wasn't as bad, but it was still pretty, like, I didn't know what to talk about. I was just like, hey, it was just very hard to think of topics to speak upon. Weird. I'm awkward in general, so you can imagine how.
Yeah, no, I totally get that though. Like it is usually really hard for me to figure out, like, especially if it's in America, talking to someone that has like no interest in Japan in particular, then I'm like, what am I gonna talk about with this person? Like, cause I'm not so into like the pop culture. I mean, sort of, but like not to a really deep extent. And then you're like, what do we talk about? Like, I don't know what to talk about. And then you end up looking like a weirdo, and you're like, oh, that's so awkward.
Yeah, it was like it was a very big adjustment period. You had to. I had. It's not like the only things I know how to talk about are Japanese things, or. But it was just like, what do I? Because I have a way in to speak to Japanese people. Me being the anomaly of like this foreigner who can speak Japanese, or at least I look foreign. I'm automatically, I don't want to say interesting, but we have something to talk about, and I can like jump off from that, like a springboard from that to all kinds of things. Yeah. But here I'm just some normal guy, and that speaks to my uninterestingness.
I don't think you're uninteresting, not at all.
I think I'm generally boring.
No, you don't give yourself enough credit.
I'm fishing for compliments, but yeah.
No, but I do understand. Like it's hard, especially if you're not, if your default personality is not like this outgoing, I can talk to anyone and everyone kind of personality, you know? If you're not good with small talk, and then it, you know, gets really hard.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at small talk, so.
And we actually went into this topic quite in detail in our first episode, I think.
Yeah, that's right. We did, yeah.
Oh! Kiyoshi, we forgot to mention our Japanese word for the program, for the episode.
I thought we did. Oh, yeah, we did. No, we did not. No, you're right. We said the English translation of it.
So relationships, love and relationships. So, I think it would just be easier to keep it to one word.
Sure.
And how about Renai?
Okay.
Love.
Gotcha.
Like as in relationship love.
I was thinking Renai Kankei, but Renai is...
That's good. Renai Kankei, Renai. Okay. Either way.
All right. I'll figure it out later on. So, how about you? How many men have you dated? You know, how many Japanese men have you dated?
I'm not going to share my number.
No, not that type of number. Not that kind of number. Like over 10 or under 10?
Like actual relationships, definitely under 10. And so my first relationship was with a Japanese American guy, but, you know, raised in completely American. So culture-wise, very close to American, but again, a little bit different because Asian American culture, again, is different from white American culture. And so it's a bit of a... But regardless, even that is quite different, I feel, from dating someone in Japan. So tell me, like, what was your first relationship? Because you have girlfriends in Japan, right, as well, and Japanese girlfriends like in the States.
Let's see. I think I have very compared to Japanese girlfriends I've had here. I've had way more here in the States than I have had in Japan. I'm trying to think how many I had in Japan. You know, where it was purely I met.
I have to think. There's so many I have to count. You know.
You know how many I had. No. I have to. No, it's so few. It's so few that I have to like think about how many there were actually. Let's see. In Japan, that I met in Japan and I dated in Japan. There's definitely one. You know her. You met her. You know she might have been the only one that I met and dated
really
solely in Japan. I'm trying to think. Let me think. The vast majority have been people I've met here first and dated here. And some have moved back and then I met them there or whatever. But like, as far as first meeting was definitely the vast majority have been here. Meeting people there and dating there, so, yeah, it's just the one. I'm excluding other types of relationships, but as far as girlfriend goes.
As far as there's actual
one who I met there and dated there. Yes, actual girlfriend. Yes.
So, I mean, what is your experience like with dating a Japanese woman?
Very, very positive. Like I said, the first girlfriend I had, who was actually very not stereotypically Japanese, meaning she wasn't what you would call like meek, or not that I think Japanese
tread carefully
or anything like that, but she was anything but that. I'm trying to tread carefully, but she was definitely not subservient or meek or quiet. She was kind of really outgoing, really boisterous, which I liked actually. I think she set the example for my type actually, which is sort of kind of outgoing, a little more outgoing than I am, a little louder than I am. And she was very much just out there. She was very, I wouldn't say flamboyant, but she was very energetic, very cute, very popular. People liked her. And yeah, I think I was pretty lucky to get her, or to
so like
date
what
her.
Do you feel
So my first experience with a Japanese girl was not with the... It's a different word for stereotypical. The I guess typical
image
Japanese
of
woman.
what people might
which
think.
tends to be not the typical image of what people might think of what a Japanese girl is. But there's a way they tend to be. I don't want to generalize. They're not all like this. But there's a baseline sort of like calmness that they have, right? You would say,
Well, I think
there's
there's definitely a big part of the culture that, makes that kind of be the standard as a woman in Japan. Like, you're calm, you're soft, you're gentle. Because actually, usually, I think a lot of times Japanese guys don't go for kind of like the hard, like if you're a bit like edgy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. They tend to stay away from that. They want. That's the problem though with a lot of Western guys looking for Japanese girls. They want that stereotype, right? They want. I don't know. I think their masculinity is very fragile, so they don't want anybody talking back to them, and so they want somebody who they think would be quiet or still typically quiet, or whatever. I think that's a negative actually, because everybody's different, and why would you go into any relationship with that in mind, right? It's dumb to search out a stereotype.
Definitely.
And they're not all like that. And even if they are, in their everyday life, kind of like that, there's different aspects to their personality that could change whenever.
Tell me some more about your experience, like with the relationship, and like what was it like? Like,
That relationship, that first one?
Whichever one you think is interesting to talk about.
They all have been different. I don't think there's been a common thread throughout all of them, except for the fact that she did set a tone of like the type of girl that went for me have been the types that aren't held back by Japanese standards, right? I guess that's why they came here, because a lot of them I met here, right? So that's why they came here, because they don't fit that Japanese society, that mold of Japanese society. So they came here to get away from that, and so because of that, I met a lot of that type of girl who sort of like I guess Japanese men would call them like Americanized or whatever. So my experiences with them have been, they were acclimated to America, but then they met me, and then I was not the stereotypical American guy, because I'm kind of quiet. I was into a lot of Japanese stuff. I listened to Japanese music, and I was into Japanese pop culture, and
so I mean, I know you said that generally your relationships have been positive, but like what kind of, like, did you have any specific I don't know, things that stood out to you, like for example, like communication styles, or when you get into a fight, like you were surprised that this happened, or stuff like that?
So the first girl, it's hard because she had always been here for a while, and her English was fine. It was on the fluent side, I would say, the early side of fluent.
So enough for daily conversation.
Enough for daily conversation, yeah. And then my Japanese at the time was not great. It was I just started. So was there a language barrier? There wasn't a language barrier. There was a cultural barrier, kind of.
Like what?
This was over 20 years ago, so it's hard to sort of it's hard to remember exactly what the barrier was. But I just remember there was a lot of like, you don't understand what I'm like because you're American and you don't understand the Japanese way, type of a thing. So that would cause a lot of conflict. Not a lot of conflict, some conflict. So
So you don't remember what?
I don't remember exactly
what those issues were.
No, because a lot of it I sort of just put out of my mind, and also it's like frivolous, like flippant things, or not flippant, but like not important
to you.
To me, maybe to her, maybe she was she took it really, really to heart, but for me, not at all. So there was a small cultural barrier there.
So do you feel like that decreased once you started being able to speak at a higher level?
Yes, like I said, like after, yeah, exactly. Like the next person by that time. It was I wouldn't say non-existent, but I don't remember with anybody else having that big of a cultural difference with anybody else besides her, my first Japanese girlfriend. Yeah, because I think after that it was nobody had been like her for a long while, a good long while after her. So
what do you mean by like her?
Somebody who was like Americanized, quote unquote Americanized, or boisterous or outgoing. They were after that the typically the typical Japanese girl. I started to date more typical, not on purpose, but more typical Japanese type of, more quiet types or whatever, for about 10 years or so. Yeah.
For 10 years? Was that one girl for 10 years or?
No. She was relatively short. There was a couple, was it like a year or maybe 6 months or something like that?
So 10 girls?
No, I didn't say 10 girls. I said for like another 10
Every
years.
6 months?
Actually for like another 5 years before I met anybody that was close to what she was like. Yeah.
So in your relationships, like, did you? Well, okay, let's put the first one out of the equation because your Japanese level wasn't so high. Yeah. So how about the relationships you had when you got pretty comfortably fluent? Did you speak in English or in Japanese or a combination of both?
After her, she was, I think, mostly English because her English was better than my Japanese.
Okay.
So that was mostly in English. Soon after her, every relationship I had, it was mostly Japanese. Okay. I would say our communication anyway was the most. Is that true? Yeah. Because after her, my Japanese quickly improved in my 20s. And by the time I was 22, 23, I was about like 60-70% fluent. So, I never had that problem.
So
cultural
then,
problem
like,
again.
On the flip side, did you ever feel that you weren't being understood? Like, when you were having arguments or fights or stuff like that?
No.
No.
I want to say no. I'm a pretty easy guy to get along with. Like, I don't.
So
I acclimate to other people fairly
interesting.
Easy. Yeah.
Okay, so did you have fights with later girlfriends? Like,
so with her, the first girl definitely. And then let's
forget the first girl.
Forget. So after her, I didn't have a lot of fights. There was a girl I dated much later. From now, that was about 8 years ago or so. She was the closest to somebody who was, I don't want to say volatile. She was younger than me, and she was not stereotypically, quote unquote, stereotypically Japanese. She was very outgoing. She was very, I would say, actually loud, very friendly, very likable. People liked her. I liked her a lot, actually. It's just things didn't work out. She was really younger than me. She was almost 10 years younger than me. So it felt like I was dating my daughter.
10 years younger is not your daughter, but
no. But the sort of what we had in common, even though I really into Japanese culture, like the things we had in common were like nothing. I think she liked a lot of American pop music. This is also in America in a Japanese conversation class.
She was in a Japanese conversation class?
Well, I used to go to a Japanese English conversation exchange class.
Oh, I see.
So I met her. I met most of the girls I've dated at that type of place.
I see.
And then so she came along, and then she was the most, like, we had the most antagonistic relationship out of all the relationships I had. She was the most antagonistic.
So that was
more
there?
not because of culture. That was because of, I think, the age gap was so big, and also because we didn't have a lot of things in common. So
what were the issues that you would fight over? Do you remember?
Her being, I don't want to blame her for being young, but I think it was just a lot of like youth related issues.
What related?
I want to go youth, like her being young and like
A youth.
Youth.
Wait. Hold on. I don't buy that, because you wouldn't have a fight with someone because they're young. Like, hey, you're only 23 years old. How dare you?
I remember I remember we had a fight. I don't remember what the fight was about, but it involved, she like punched me in the face.
What?
And I told her you should go back to Japan, and she like slapped me in the face.
Whoa. Wait, slapped or punched?
It felt like both. Maybe it was a closed hand. Yeah, it felt like both. But it was like, I was like, yeah, you should just go back to Japan. Then she like cold cocked me. and then I remember it calmed down fairly quickly after that. But I cannot for the life of me remember why we were fighting.
It must have been something big.
But yeah, that was the first time anybody I was dating had slapped me.
Interesting.
And I remember we went to a party once, and she was mad at me for some reason, and she wouldn't talk to me. It was kind of cute because she would try to avoid me, but then she would try to I would catch her looking at me, and she wanted to say something, but she was mad at quote unquote mad at me for something, and
quote unquote.
Well,
I think that's a general. That's definitely not just a Japanese culture thing. So.
yeah. It's a me thing. It was me. It was all me.
And then, okay, how about you said you had one girlfriend who you met in Japan and dated in Japan, right? Was that any different from dating Japanese girls who were living in the U.S.?
Again, she was I keep using that word. I gotta stop using that word.
Just cut that part out.
I'll cut that out. She was
talk about other stuff with her.
She was again really into American guys, foreign dudes. So, and as such, her English was really good. So I would say actually our communication with her was about 50-50 Japanese, 50% English.
Oh.
So there was no problems. We barely fought. We only had conflict toward the end of the relationship. So, but we didn't. In the middle of it, there were a couple things here and there, but nothing big. We got along really well.
So I'm curious. I've heard from other people sometimes that, for example, especially in couples where both couples speak English and Japanese at a pretty high level, the language you choose to speak in will change depending on are you talking about feelings or are you talking about non-feeling stuff, just factual stuff, right? Did you ever feel that way? You tended to use English for this type of talk versus Japanese for this type of talk?
Interesting question. Let me think. I think when it came to emotional things, I think English was better for me. And her English was so good to the point that, it worked out for her too. So
Did she use English to express her emotions as well?
Yeah, for the most part.
Or was she using Japanese?
For the most part, like I said, her English was very exceptional. So she was able to express all her feelings in English, no problems. And so I let her do that. I mean, like I said, 50-50 for the most part, but feelings talks were tended to be in, I think, English.
So did you ever feel like you would prefer to express any feelings in Japanese? 逆に, on the
prefer? No, I revert to English because that's my home language. So it's easier for me to express most feelings.
So I have
in English.
two thoughts. One is I think maybe a lot of times, especially maybe for Japanese people, speaking in English allows them to kind of get away from the cultural pressures of not expressing yourself that maybe they've been brought up in. Because in general, the Japanese language, a lot of times, the phrases you use and the way you say things can be very vague and kind of beat around the bush kind of expressions, right? Yeah. And so if you are used to being direct is not good, it's not polite, kind of if that's the general feeling that you've been kind of brought up in, then I can see how speaking in English might allow you to directly express yourself easier.
Most definitely. I think that's one of the main problems between a Western guy and a Japanese girl is that sort of lack of a straightforward response from Japanese people. They can't straightforward tell you their feelings. They can't say no easily. And American guys want a straight answer, right? Or Americans in general want a straight answer. Like, you just say no, but they can't just say no. They got to be like, I got to do this, I got to do that, and maybe, or that's the sort of the catalyst for a lot of conflict, I believe.
So I feel like, for me, though, the funny thing is, like, I feel like I'm more able to adequately express my feelings in Japanese.
Okay. Why is that?
Which is...
So the guys you dated, I don't know how many you guys dated, whatever, but on the flip side, when you had conflict, did you guys...
Oh, I never spoke English in my relationships.
Okay. All right. Never? Not one?
So that...
Not
never.
Once? Really? Was that because you preferred Japanese or because they could not speak English?
Because I prefer Japanese.
That's it? That's the only reason?
Because I've been with people who could speak some English. So, like, it wasn't completely off the table.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I feel like almost the directness of English is... This is turning into, like, a language episode. But half language episode.
Relationships have a lot to do with English, though. Relationships have a lot to do with communication, so it's appropriate.
Well, yeah, that's definitely very true. But I feel like maybe the directness of English and having to kind of maybe pinpoint things when you say them is actually might be a bit more difficult for me. So that's why the allowance of the vagueness of the Japanese language feels a bit more comfortable.
I can see that. Yeah, it's not convenient when you're well, at least not for. I can't speak for everybody, but when you first ask out a Japanese girl, there's we go, hey, let's go out, and we want either a yes or a no or I can't. Whereas and Japanese girls tend to, in my experience, and this is a culture thing I've learned over the years. It is definitely a cultural thing where it's like they got to be like, well, I'm not quite sure. Maybe next week. Could I invite my girlfriends? And there's
wait, hold on. They invite their girlfriends?
Like minna de yarimashou mitana, right? This is.
Oh, you've had that happen?
Yeah. I also hear it from other guys who have this. Trying to date Japanese girls.
Isn't that maybe a way of declining?
Yeah. There's an adjustment. We're not used to that. Yeah, exactly. They cannot say no, so it becomes like are they interested? I'm not quite sure. They said kind of because they wanted to hang out with other people with us, but at the same, like, they don't just come out and be like, nah, I'm good. You know what I mean? We prefer that, or at least I prefer that. To then just like being around the bush or walking on eggshells type of a response.
How did you ask out the girls that you asked out, and what was their response? Obviously,
that one is more of like
girlfriend, right?
Yeah, if somebody likes you, and so it was that type of deal. Where it's like I don't. Once I get the feeling that person is not into me, I stop immediately. I don't continue. Okay. So you've got a feel for the vague decline. For the vague decline of Japanese culture. If that's my advice.
No, that's not what I meant. That's not. That sounds like completely something else.
Yeah.
We do not want Japanese culture to decline.
No, not at all.
The vague way of declining an invitation that is reflective of Japanese culture. That was really long.
Sure. I'll accept that.
Okay, so you've got a feel for that, so you're good.
Now, yeah, definitely. But in the past, it's a lot of climbing or jumping hurdles. It's hard to adjust. That would be my advice. If you feel like a girl is, again, you'd have a different opinion as far as guys goes. But for girls, if you feel like they are beating around the bush or they aren't directly declining you, just take that as like they are not interested.
You know, I think that's also the case for guys too.
Yeah. But like you're not the one in the position of asking them out, right? Or did you, unless you asked out the guys you went out with?
Okay, well, here's the thing. Like when I first came here,
Yeah.
I was actually like my style and everything was completely different from how I look now.
Yeah.
And so I was really like on the edgy looking side. Like I was dyeing my hair platinum blonde.
Yeah, I remember.
I had a short haircut.
Yeah, I
with
remember.
like I would spike the back and like it was pretty cool. I did like it.
It was
And you know, my style of clothes was also very like, I mean, not as far as like punk or like rock, but like it was a bit more on the edgy side. Definitely not like soft and flat and gentle. Like it was more like hard up image, right?
it was a little punky.
So I would have to do the asking because nobody would come up to me. I think I was too intimidating.
That's right. I hear that the Japanese guys do not come up to Western
But
women.
you know, even then, I think like I did notice that there was a lot of this like wishy-washy replies, and then
Really?
the ultimate like what would usually end up happening would be like they just stop responding, right?
Really?
The lovely the phenomenon of shizen shoumitsu.
Really?
How would you translate
Shizen
that?
shoumitsu.
Natural dissipation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ghosting. That's
Is that a ghost?
Ghosting. That's the English.
Of not, you just don't
Yeah,
respond?
that's a ghost.
You just don't respond?
Yeah,
I guess so.
yeah, that's a
I
ghost.
guess so.
But yeah, there was a lot.
But
of
for
that,
me, it's like
especially
I
when
felt ghosting
was-
is like if you're having a good time and then they immediately stop responding to you. The way you explain it,
No,
feels
but-
like they just sort of just they just don't respond after a
yeah,
while.
I had that happen too.
Oh, really? Like where like you felt like things were
Yeah.
going like really well.
Like
and then
I
they just stopped.
thought it was fun. What happened? You know.
Well, yeah, okay.
And yeah, so especially when I was blonde and short haircut, I did notice. Definitely, that was a big difference that I noticed is that like if you are more on that edgy look side, then a lot of Japanese guys will probably not want to date you like as a serious relationship.
Really? I feel like there's more of a
unless they are like they've had experience living abroad and they're kind of
okay, all right.
used to that, or like they really like that kind of look.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's more of a if they stop talking to you, isn't that more of like a intimidation factor of like they
Oh, yeah, I think that those are two separate things, but in terms of like dating in general, I feel like it was very difficult to like get into a relationship when I was blonde and short haircut and edgy.
So I think it comes back to that sort of that whole masculinity thing, whereas Japanese guys like to feel masculine and in power, but then they come across somebody like you, and it's like they're not going to be in that position anymore. So they go like,
I mean, definitely yes, but the funny thing though is, here's the funny part. When I was like that, I was actually compensating too.
oh really?
'Cause like I'm a softie. I'm like really gentle and like
Yeah,
I'm-
yeah. I'd say so.
I'm very full of love. And so, but you know, like, and maybe eventually we'll get into this, but you know, there was a big part of me that felt I had to kind of compensate and be like, be a little like spiky or, show
I mean,
a strong front.
Yeah, your outward
Or,
appearance did not
various
reflect your inward appearance.
experiences that shaped my life. So it wasn't even an accurate representation of my personality. So it's kind of funny that ended up kind of, yeah, not at all. And another thing I've really noticed, and this is, I think, Japanese guys too, of course, like in terms of like preferences that most Japanese guys have, but also in terms of general Japanese society. Like I felt when I was living in the States, I really felt like this tons of eye makeup and smoky eye and like this and that, like putting all this stuff on my face, like that was like a requirement. You know, that this is what you do to be considered beautiful in this society. That was like that was like a baseline in the States.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh, but so then when you got there, it was you
when
realized...
I moved here, like the longer I lived here and the longer I spent here, like it just started feeling like too much, like superfluous. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, superfluous, yes.
Every episode, I'm like, I have this word that I'm like, am I saying that right? Pensive? Is that superfluous?
Pensive is a made-up word, though. So, well, all words are made up, but.
But so yeah, so I felt like nobody really needs, like I don't need to be doing this heavy makeup, this heavy eye makeup.
Yeah.
Like and so I started doing less and less makeup and like less eyeshadows. Like I used to have so many eyeshadows and like all these different things.
Yeah.
And I really think that's also a really good part about being in Japan is because there is no like, there's not so much emphasis on like adding stuff on as much. Well, okay, some people are gonna like disagree with me, because then on the opposite side you do have like all these extra makeup additions where like you get like the eyelid crease and like the lifting the chin and like making the tape that goes here and there, and like you take the makeup off and it's completely different. I know there's stuff like that too, but I feel like society as a whole, for example, like advertisements, those aren't the images that you're bombarded with. You're not really bombarded with sexy, full makeup, like perfect, glowing, contoured faces.
You mean?
In Japan. You're surrounded with, the natural, light, airy, fluffy look is beautiful, right?
There's a lot of glowy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like that kind of allows you to feel more comfortable in your skin. And I feel like that's also more of the style of look that Japanese guys go for, rather than like super glamored out kind of makeup.
Okay, and that's why you sort of made the gradual change to a more natural look.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't to get more guys' attention.
Yeah.
But it was just more, I started to feel less need for it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I remember when you made the change. I mean, I don't remember specifically when, but when I was like, oh, she's not blonde anymore. That's interesting. And her hair's longer.
Dude, like, recently, a photo from, I think it was like 10 years ago, when I just moved here, a photo popped up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And, like, if you put that photo and a photo of me now side by side,
different people.
Totally different people. It's kind of hilarious. It really is.
Totally different.
And not that one is good or one is bad, but I mean, I definitely prefer the person I am now, and I'm much, much more comfortable in my own skin. And so, yeah.
That's good. I think it's important to be comfortable in your own skin.
Definitely.
Especially when dating.
Yes. Very important.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. So, in your relationships, did you say, I love you?
Yep, I did.
You did?
I did. I'm very, I say it a lot. I don't
you
know
say
what that
it a
says
lot.
About me.
Okay.
I don't know what that says about me, but I say it Pretty often. Pretty easily.
So, like,
yeah. So.
How often would you say it? Like, do you say it that, like, has this been the same amount of saying I love you throughout your whole life, or has it changed, or?
You mean how often would I say it when I met them?
Like when you're in a relationship.
Pretty often, I would say.
Like every day, like, or whenever you hang up
in
the
English
phone,
or like in English or in Japanese.
Either way.
The last relationship, I think every time we parted, so like on the phone or like if we met and then she went back home or whatever, I think every time we departed each other, yeah, I would say it.
Interesting. Did you ever get any feedback about that, or
like I don't love you back, or
no,
or like this is too much, or like
that would be bad. That would be the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
No, like,
you know, sometimes they're just not ready to say it back to you. So,
like, I mean, did you ever get like, oh, I really like that you say it, I love you so much, or was it?
Yeah,
like,
no, I never got anything like that. No.
No.
It was either reciprocated or I didn't get there was no judgment or
Judgment.
or there was no response to it. Like, yeah, nothing like that.
Interesting.
You mean because I'm not a Japanese guy, they are a Japanese girl? Like, no, they didn't say anything about it.
So something interesting. Well, I don't know. It's interesting to me, but after I started getting more into Japanese culture, and I think this really, like, the change took place when I first studied abroad in Kyoto, because that was my first time here ever. When I returned to the States, I felt a really big change in how I felt towards saying I love you.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
I actually felt that I didn't want to say it every time, and I didn't want to hear it every time.
You didn't want to hear it every time? Like, so when they said it to you, would you... Well, first of all, did they say it to you a lot?
So at the time, I had a boyfriend in the States. And so I came back to the States.
He was Japanese?
Japanese American. So
okay.
Born and raised in the States. But so, you know, his way of interacting was like, you know, the standard, like, I love you every time we talk on the phone, or, you know, basically, like you said, every time you part, there was I love you.
Yeah.
And I came back and I was like, hey, you know what? I've been thinking, and I would prefer not to say I love you all the time. Just like occasionally, like when you really feel in the moment, like you want to say it.
Yeah.
But not like every time as a greeting or like as a goodbye, you know?
Yeah.
And he did not respond well to that.
I would not assume so.
Would you be offended if someone told that to you?
I would feel hurt. Definitely.
Why,
if I was the type to say that all the time, and then somebody was like, "Hey, you know what? Not so much anymore, dude." Like, yeah, come on, that's that would hurt my feelings, and I understand the way he felt.
But I'm not saying like don't feel it. It's just, to me, like I felt like a bit of a switch to like I on the opposite, like 逆に, how do you say 逆に?
Not adversely, but 逆に is on the flip side. Yeah. Conversely, there you go. That's the word.
Conversely. I don't know.
I mean,
it's
a little proper,
one of those phrases that's hard to put into English, isn't it?
Because we don't use that phrase a lot. We don't say conversely a lot. We say on the flip side, but even that we don't say that much.
Yeah. So. It's a little different than what I'm trying to say. But so I felt like saying it at every goodbye makes it kind of an automatic gesture.
Yeah, well, it took away the meaning of it. It sort of diluted the meaning for you.
Yeah, like it felt too not ritualized, too 習慣, too
obligatory?
Not well, obligatory, yes, but also like it felt like just a habit.
Habitual? Yeah, habitual.
So like it's just a thing you say at this point in the conversation rather than I really feel this way in this moment, so I want to let you know my feelings kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted the latter. And he was like, well, I always feel it when I say it to you. And I'm like, no, that's not. Yes, I know. Obviously, like you love me the whole time. It's not like you only love me 5% of our relationship. Like I understand this is a constant, the love is constantly on. I get that. The only thing that I was saying, it was, trying to say the feeling in that moment, like when you're really aware of that moment and how you feel in that moment, like that would be the time where I want to say it or hear it.
Sure.
So actually, I'd still say it with him because he got offended, but in any relationships after that, like I never said it as a greeting closing type of thing anymore.
Would they ever say it to you? Because after him it was Japanese, pure Japanese guys, right? Culturally.
Not I don't think so. Like maybe as a reciprocating when I said it, but
yeah,
I didn't say it. Like I haven't said it to that many people in the first place.
Okay.
And I actually never felt the need for it.
To say it because you feel like they would already... You didn't need it for yourself to hear it. Okay.
Yeah, because I'd much rather... I could see from their actions. And that was... I would prefer that over hearing it every day,
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I also see his perspective. But... yeah, you didn't need it, and he wanted to express it. I'm guessing he felt judged for it, though.
Maybe. I don't know.
He had this big old expression of love, and you were like, dude, should have back off on that for a second. Please, can you temper that?
Making something just a, then it becomes just a regular... like standard thing that's always done, and then you take it for granted because it's just it's on autopilot, That's
I get you.
That's what I didn't
position.
like. I don't like the autopilotness of it.
The autopilotness. but from his standpoint, he's like, I got all this love in my heart for her, and I'm expressing it to her, and she just swats it down like it's a fly. It's a meaningless fly. She kills my love. Like from his standpoint, it's like she's killing my love. She doesn't.
I would prefer actions. I really do prefer actions.
Did he not act? Did he not?
Well, there were a lot of issues.
Okay.
let's keep it at that.
Sure.
But yeah, this ended up being quite a long.
Pretty long.
Talk.
There's a gap. But so do you recommend dating Japanese guys?
I don't know if it's a thing that you can recommend or not. Regardless, it all comes down to, are your values, do you value the same things, and are you willing to listen to each other's needs and adjust to one or the other, or meet in the middle? And basically that's the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like. So, just communication is key, and
do you feel like they communicate well? I don't know how many you had.
I really think it depends on the person. I also think just because someone is non-Japanese doesn't necessarily mean that they can communicate well.
No, I think men are notorious for not being able to communicate well, regardless the race or
and that
culture.
That was actually a big issue in my first relationship, where the English was the main language or the only language.
Yeah.
And I never really felt understood to the extent that I had felt in later relationships. So definitely language is not the ultimate, decider of communication ability or not.
I think it's a big, large chunk of it, though.
I don't know. No, I would say culture is bigger. Culture is bigger, I would say.
Okay.
You don't agree?
Bigger than language barrier? I mean, definitely you see a lot of like couples where it's like the guy, well, they can't communicate, right? They can't speak to each other. I mean, there's the language barrier is huge, but they still get along or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a what do I want to say? For those kinds of relationships, I feel like it's hard to say one way or the other, because you don't really know to what extent one person is just bearing through like gamang versus, because relationships are complicated. They really are. So it's hard to
I can't tell you how many
categorize.
times I've seen. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the old American guy and non-American woman who don't have a common language, and they try and try for whatever reason. They keep going for it, and it just ends up not working out. That every single time, like 100% of the time, it never works out. I'm always thinking like, how do they even think to get together? Like, what is? You see it in movies all the time where it's like it always works out, and it's like, well, that's the movies, right? Like, how does that work? But it can't work in real life, and it never does. It always ends up in like they're screaming at each other, or they're like, I can't understand you. You don't understand me. And like, I've never been in that. Aside from the first girlfriend I had, which wasn't really, we didn't really have a language barrier, so I never understand that. How you can just sort of like get somebody who doesn't speak your language at all. So how do you figure out what?
Well, I think
what do you have in common?
Like I said, I think it's probably a complicated issue, because I feel like in certain situations, usually the woman is willing to compromise in return for having like stability, a stable family life, or like a stable economic situation, kind of thing. So in those kinds of situations, you're having to give up something in order to, if you feel like that's more valuable and that's more important to you, then you have to compromise being understood or
okay, yeah,
actual love,
yeah.
But I won't say that it's good or bad. People come from different situations and they do what they have to do to get through them. So, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But yeah, I think that will bring us to a close about relationships and romance in Japan.
We could always talk more about it. There's a lot more to talk about,
Yes, Kiyoshi's sex life, definitely.
Oh yeah, my sex life.
Want to hear more details about that?
Oh yeah, that'll bring everybody to this podcast. I'm sure everybody wants to hear about my sex life. But yeah, that could be a topic for another day. Yeah, let's end it here. If you guys have any questions, comments, stories, or anything else you just want to tell us, if you have anything you like about us, please tell us. If you don't like us, please tell us. Write to us at Ourjapanpodcast@gmail.com. Please like and subscribe to wherever you listen to this on, and we will.
I would really like some questions. Actually, that would be cool.
Questions would be great. We're gonna read them on
Hopefully.
This podcast.
Yeah, just send us a bunch of questions.
Thousands
you can
of
ask
questions.
As much.
Bombard us with questions.
You can ask us as many questions as you want about Kiyoshi's love life. So, he's an open book.
I'm sure. Rosa is a little closed. I'm wide open. I'm wide open.
Holy shit! Hold on.
Oh my god! What'd you do?
Yeah. So, what an ending to our podcast. My cat just fell off the top of a shelf. So.
You fell off the top of a shelf.
Yeah.
How high is the shelf?
Like close to the ceiling. Pretty close to the ceiling.
Close to the ceiling, and she just, or one of them just fell all the way from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, so I think the cat bed was like on the edge, like too close to the edge, and she didn't realize that it was kind of hanging over, and so she probably stepped on the edge and like it slipped maybe. Because the cat bed came down with her, and that looked a bit painful. So
was it though? She's a cat, so
I think she's okay, but she hit like the ottoman on the way down.
Oh my god!
So I hope she's okay.
Cats walk it off. They're good to go.
Poor baby. All right, well, we will catch you guys later, and thanks for tuning in.
I hope Rosa's cat is okay, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
All right, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.